Welcome to this episode, everyone. I'm here with my longtime great friend, Jiu-jitsu extraordinaire, super tough black belt, Professor Jose Llanas. How you doing today, Jose?
I'm doing great, Professor. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, man. I'm excited to talk to you. We've known each other for a very long time. I just wanted, for anybody that doesn't know you yet or know your story, your background, you have a lot to share, and your transition over the years has been pretty incredible, I would say. Not everybody has known you as long as I've known you, and I think when people meet you, they just see somebody who's this polished black belt who's leading our kids' leadership class, and there's almost this kind of mystique that you've been doing it. You were always like that, and you were just meant to do it. But the truth is, you haven't been doing martial arts since you were like 5 years old, and everybody has their story. So I want to share that a little bit and talk about really what martial arts has done for you, and now what you're doing so special and giving back. Talk about just tell everybody a little bit, how'd you find jiu-jitsu and why'd you get started?
Yeah, well, like you said, I've never been a martial artist. I started jiu-jitsu at 21, which is still a good age, but it's not that the years of a kid, starting as a teenager. I was involved with taekwondo and a little bit of boxing, which helped, and that's the main reason I was been captivated towards jiu-jitsu, is the whole fighting aspect of it. Right. Originally, I thought I was going to be a fighter, and I was imagining myself walking out, so I was intrigued with jiu-jitsu. I think you were as well. I think a lot of people were with the UFC. And just stylistically, how jiu-jitsu was so superb to every other martial arts style that was fighting, it just intrigued me. And I was like, I need to learn that so I can fight. Anyhow, as a teenager, coming up, I always wanted to find it. There was not access like there is right now. You can't just go online and find Team Tooke like you guys can do it now. There was very few jiu-jitsu instructors who were actually black belts back then, and so there was not a lot of opportunities. If it wasn't until I got into your system, training with under instructors that were under you, I was finally introduced into jiu-jitsu, and I was 21. I was able to find it on my own, and that's something that is great. I always tell the kids, you guys are lucky to have parents bring you here and give you this, not only just jiu-jitsu, but be in a program like at Team Tooke. It's educationally changing lives. I mean, we can see it based on the results with the kids, and then more than anything, like you said, polishing me as an instructor as well as a person. So yeah, the whole idea of jiu-jitsu came from fighting MMA, but I just fell in love with jiu-jitsu and how much I didn't know, being a white belt.
Well, and I remember too, and when I started, I was drawn. I watched the first UFCs, and I was like, I've got to learn that. I was so drawn to it. I love the technical aspect of it. I love that a little person could beat a big person, and then when I started doing jiu-jitsu, the chokes and everything, it was something amazing. But I think with many things that we find that draw our interest, what the reasons why we start are not always the same reasons why we stay for a long time. I still love that part of it because there's still new moves, but I really embraced kind of a new lifestyle and outlook on the rest of my life through the martial arts. So I think you had a similar upbringing in the martial arts.
Yes, and it was, it's like you said, it's the that's really cool, but then you get in, you become part of the culture, the lifestyle. I started as anybody else, at the end of the line, didn't know anything. In fact, my best friend, I met him the first day of jiu-jitsu, so, we became friends since then. I was able to bring him back into jiu-jitsu after many years. So yeah, the idea of you entering the lifestyle of jiu-jitsu, it happens. I know a lot of times we try to force ourselves into it, but for me, it was the white belt level where I learned to accept being a white belt and using competitions, getting into a lifestyle. A lot of people don't know, but I was pretty, much bigger back then. I was at one point 225 pounds.
Yeah. Pure muscle?
Pure muscle, yeah. I just went on a hardcore diet and now walk around 180, high 170s. But like you said, it was the lifestyle. It was the feats. I remember I went to a tournament that you threw ground control. where Marcelo
Yeah.
Garcia came.
Yeah.
And I was
Lovato and
yeah.
Romulo Bajal
I was
and
Romulo, Mike Fowler.
Yeah.
I was a big Mike Fowler. He was like my first idol, and I knew Marcelo Garcia was like this huge megastar,
Mhm.
and I knew Rafael, Lovato, Romulo, and I got to watch them compete as a white belt, and that really intrigued me. And one thing that I told myself is I don't know if I was gonna be a world champion or anything like that, but man, I wanted to be a black belt. You know,
Yeah.
I wanted to be. I don't know how. So every time I missed class or I couldn't make the class, which was rare, it had to be related to work. I felt like I was falling behind.
Mhm.
Like I couldn't miss one day because my teammates were learning something I was not.
Yeah.
You know, and so that drive is what kept me going, and I got my blue belt a lot quicker than other students, but they don't see that aspect of it. I used to drive an hour to go train with like guys like your students at that time, Alex Gotay,
Yeah.
on a Saturday because we only had classes twice a week.
Right.
You know, and
At the was this the spring location?
yeah, the spring location, and then eventually we had 3 days a week, and yeah, working construction all day, driving. I lived in Conroe. That's what people don't understand. I drove to Spring from wherever I was in work, and then I drove 50 minutes at night after training, and then I would give, which at that time was my relationship, whatever time I had, and they supported me, which was a good thing, right? But yeah, it's and then from there on, the competition aspect took over the lifestyle, and opportunities came where I was able to start helping teach the classes.
You mentioned something about. I have a similar story. When I was getting started, I was driving almost an hour one way to get there, and I had some friends and family at the time that really thought like I was obsessed, and because I was, but I don't think this is a bad word, obsession. Delusion is not good, but obsession was something that you love and you're passionate about. I think it's important to pour yourself into it. And it's a lot of sacrifice because there are other avenues that might provide more fun or more money or more recognition or just other things, and a lot of times we take those for the wrong reasons. It's like, well, we take them because people expect us to take a different path. And really following your heart with something that you love is not easy, but now it's like the same question we always talk about with the kids is like, when you get to black belt, what would you trade it for? Would you trade it for $100,000? There's no amount of money or recognition that I would trade all that experience for.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. You know, like I gave up another career, like another thing where I could make more money than, following my passion. But one of the things that, like you said, the obsession that I had for jiu-jitsu, it was something that I just kept growing. I mean, I went through situations where my family were not very understanding of this. Coming from traditional Mexican culture, is like they expect you to, have a job and probably be married by the time you're 21 years old. I was starting jiu-jitsu at 21 years old.
Right.
So I had a lot of goals. So
jiu-jitsu came in and just derailed your whole family culture. And
pretty much,
My bad.
For a long time. And, like I said, sometimes, like you said, we look for other satisfactions and fun things. We look for maybe a relationship to make us happy. Maybe a work is not going so well, or maybe stressful. But the reality, anything that you do in life for a long period of time can be stressful.
Yeah.
Right? And any partner that will leave your love for 1 year is not going to give you the same love for 10 years. So what does that mean? It means you have to be selfish sometimes. And you have to do what makes you happy. And I went with it. I went with my passion. And up to now, my family's now understands. After so many years, they understand why I'm doing it and my passion. But for a long time, they didn't understand why I was maybe using money to do that and potentially getting hurt. My mom, didn't understand. Oh, you could potentially get hurt. I could potentially get hurt stepping out of the bat. You know what I mean? But the idea is this makes me happy, and they see it. Up to now, my brother Oscar, he tells me he tells me that he's very happy for me because even without the, I guess, my family not being in favor of me pursuing this, fighting and everything, he knew that I did it because I wanted to. That was my passion.
Right.
You know, and so, yeah, I wouldn't trade it. I don't know what life would give me without jiu-jitsu, but all I know is giving me a lot more than what I can give jiu-jitsu. That's why right now we're trying to help people, give other kids something that we gotten so then from jiu-jitsu, so they can become better people, or they pass it on.
Yeah.
Like, you know.
And I want to talk about that in a second, what you've been doing with the kids, because I see the transformation in our kids program as a result of your efforts and in you becoming this leader. But first, I want to backstep, because I remember a time when you were a blue belt and you had already been training a little while before you and I really trained much together. And I remember that moment. And one of the most gratifying things for me is watching somebody grow in the sport, in the art, and become kind of a challenging training partner. And so I remember as you were getting better at purple belt and really, I remember thinking, man, this guy's getting tough. And then as a competitor and a brown and even black belt level, competing in like the Fight to Win tournaments and a successful run as an MMA fighter. And then to the point where now I consider you like my toughest training partner. And it's really an awesome feeling to, like I said, like, I have so much respect for your technical level that I will try my best to destroy you when we go. And I'm not successfully, but I know that like the only way I can push you is I've got to give you 100% and you back to me. And so there's almost those heated moments where it's like, oh, you sweat me. Like it's almost like this emotional thing. And then we go back and forth. I think that, training environment and those relationships are so important, and I see that. I try to identify students on the mat that are like that for each other, even if it's kids or even if it's, two white belts, but they're similar athleticism and similar styles. Like they complement each other. Like,
and sadly, sometimes we, as training partners, we run away from that, but those are the training partners that you need. You know?
For sure. I know, like, and I'll use you again as an example. If I have a day where I'm like, man, I'm kind of tired today, like, I'm not sure I want to train with this guy. I should, because I know if we train together, it's going to be a learning experience. But that's why I'm glad, like, I'm kind of glad when you pick me, because maybe I wasn't going to pick you. And I think I do that sometimes too.
Well, I honestly, like, I look at you. Obviously, there's the rank, so you can't overstep the pick. But a lot of times when I'm like, I really want to go professor, I just look at you like,
you just mad dog me.
Yeah, and there's other times where like, I hope he doesn't pick me, but I have to look at you, who you're going to pick, and then you're like, let's go. Well,
I mean, that's really where you learn it, is through the challenge of that's to me is so unique about the combative arts, is it's one-on-one. And when you find someone who compliments you and forces you to stretch the full extent of your limitations in order to accomplish maybe a guard pass or a sweep, that 5 to 10 minute round can be as beneficial as the next 10 hours of sparring, if you have that right, training partner. So,
and with that said, it's like, I mean, a lot of people, like you said, they look at you as a polished black belt, they don't see your beginnings, they see me like, oh, it's a black belt now. But that is the reason why I have my identity, because of you, if you really think about it, right? Yeah, there's a lot of people out there creating games and innovatives, but I don't train with them. You know what I mean? I don't train with them, so I get to learn and feed for them. But my idea, what I'm trying to say is, everyone hopefully sees this, is that you use your training partners to tailor your techniques. So in my scenario, you are the most well-rounded in here, and you are aware of my game.
Right.
So it's like, I can't keep doing, if something works on you, you adapt very quick. And then if you do something to me, I try to adapt on it.
Yeah.
So that's why we keep constantly, it's not like, oh man, how many times, how many points you scored on me, or how many times you submit me. Is all those little battles that we constantly keep growing. Like, I'll come out with a new guard, and then I'll start using it, and work here and there. Then
drive
you
me
start shutting
crazy
it
for
down.
a couple weeks, and then I start to figure it out.
Yeah, and then that makes me grow to find something else. That's what I always tell people, you know. And so that type of training, like you said, you use it different ways. It's the quality of your training we have. We always try to kill each other. I think we hurt each other the most, but in a good way, if that makes sense. But also only because the intensity of competitors we go against are going to be high level guys.
Yeah.
And we have to push ourselves into that aspect. I'm just glad I get to push a little bit more than compared to like purple belt years, where I was just getting killed left and right.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's that's such an important part of the journey, and it makes you appreciate reaching a high level, because to get if you're going to become a legitimate black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you're going to tap out thousands and thousands of times,
Yeah.
And I remember going through it and having those days where I had to remind myself that I love learning more than winning.
Yeah.
Because if you want to get better, you need to be training with people that can push you like that and that are going to threaten and tap you out and put you in the bad positions.
Yeah.
And the way I see it too is like, you hear instructors say all the time, and it's very true. They'll say, my goal is to make my students better than me. But there's a little kind of caveat is like sometimes the instructor, they might let that happen too fast. Like, oh, I caught him up. Great. Good for me. I did my job. It's like, no, your job is not to stay here and let the students get good so you can feel good about them passing. You've got to be climbing as fast as they can. And if they surpass you, that's when you know that you really did your job because you were getting better along with them.
Exactly. And that's one thing, like at least for me, like I have improved so much, but the reality is you have improved so much you haven't stopped. You know what I mean? Like your discipline, not only your discipline, but your commitment to still competing and your lifestyle. Like, like you're taught me a lot with the breathing exercise, all the little things that you don't see on the mats that make a huge impact in your lifestyle. Because, I can do this for a month. I can do this for 2 months. But in the 3rd month mark, it starts getting tiring. Yeah. And after 6 months of this lifestyle, man, you're worn out. Yeah. And next thing you know, this is affecting your whole life. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's maintaining that mentality of always growth. And like you said, you show up even when you're not teaching, you show up to spar. Tell me how many instructors still spar in their own class. Less likely are going to show up to other instructors' classes to spar.
Sure.
So the standards are there, you know what I mean? So the thing is, I might be a higher standard or getting better, yet you're still setting up the standards for me a lot higher if you know. I don't know if you noticed that.
Yeah, and to me it's I think a big part of that's what keeps it exciting. Because if the moment you stop and say, well, I'm a black belt, I don't really need to come to practice as much anymore, jiu-jitsu loses its allure. It's no longer this, it's still great, but it's no longer this amazing thing with endless potential. It's like, I've got it figured out, and that's the worst place to be.
Yeah.
And I would be lying if I said that there wasn't a little bit of ego there when I miss a class. It's like what you said earlier. It's like, well, man, they're practicing. I don't want to miss a class. I want to go get better too.
Yeah.
So,
I agree. It's and that's a beauty part of it. And the other part about it, besides the physical part, is also being open-minded. Sometimes even at blue belt, purple belt, we have a mentality established about this is our game, this is what we do. But one thing you always allow me to be myself with jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
You have always allowed me, any technique I have ever brought to you, you have never crushed it down and said that will never work. Now, you know what I mean?
No, because I want to know how you're doing it. Because it works on me, so it's going to work.
But even at that purple belt level, at the old purple level, you always encouraged me to think outside the box, but when I was ready, to figure out things outside my comfort zone when I was ready. And so you never shut down that growth process of learning more stuff, just like you do. Sometimes some student is doing a technique and you ask them how they do it because you're still learning. Your ego could easily say, man, you know what? That will never work on me. Because you know what? Probably a student will not be able to do a technique on you.
But that's not that doesn't mean it's not a real technique.
Exactly. So your mindset is there, so it allows your students to grow as well. And if I keep that same mentality, then our students, kids, students, which is the ones that I teach the most, are gonna grow.
So on that note, in the last couple of years, you've really you've been teaching the kids class for a long time. We've made a lot of changes in terms of the expectation that we're putting on the kids. It's beyond the scope of the jiu-jitsu moves. We have homework assignments. We have character projects that they have to work on and complete in order to qualify for the ranking. And I'm not running that class. I've learned how to do it from mentors of mine. I've helped put it together. But you're really the one who's taken ownership of the class, and it's flourishing like never before. What has it been like to watch this transition take place, and how does it feel to be kind of involved in that?
And it's I think it all starts, well, those of you guys don't know, when I started teaching kids, I had never had any experience teaching kids. So I went into teaching kids from just helping assist adult classes. So it was a complete new experience for me. But one of the biggest things is, like you said, all the other stuff that you add into the program that make it be besides being a recreational jiu-jitsu, we make it a educational program that has allowed, believe it or not, has made everything easier for me. Now, implementing everything has been the issue, right? Like over time, because you have ways you teach classes, and then you show up with, hey, we're trying to implement this. Not only do I have to break the barrier of the way I do things, but then I have to break the barrier of like making sure the parents accept what we're doing, which they do take a role on reinforcing all the stuff, and that is a major role for the success of the class. Like you are bringing in the material that you're giving me to implement, and slowly implementing the program, the material to the program has shown the result. So showing the result has given me the perspective, like, man, this is so much easier. We add this into our program. And then the biggest objective of this, which has been fun, right? Implementing this, it's realizing that this is all going to benefit the kids. And so it's been really, really cool to get outside of only teaching jiu-jitsu and learning like the things that I teach the kids, I try to implement them in my lifestyle. And then the biggest aspect, man, there's just the reward part of it, where you see kids' successful stories of a kid who was not necessarily always bullied. You always get that bully. No, I've learned with kids who have autism, different things, and then seeing their character develop on the mats is huge. So it's hard to say, to see the transformation, because everything's been happening year by year. So the reward process of seeing the kids develop into what they are is truly what gives everything so much satisfaction. And I mean, like coming back and teaching a class the next day and going home. I don't know what other instructors do, but I go home thinking about my students and like what was the issue today, what was the trigger, what are things that we can do, how can we combine, how can we adapt this kid into this class, how sometimes kids don't get along, sometimes they have issues. It's just so many things you run into on the mats that people don't see, but man, it's become like a natural ability for me to have deal with kids. I don't know what is it that I get along with them. That they see me as a mentor instructor, respect me, yet they see me as a friend. Maybe it has to do with my childhood, that I've always been that kid that became friends with other people or looked at mentors outside of home, but maybe because I didn't have that makes me want to give that to the kids. So I don't know, maybe teaching was always a passion that I had in me that I hadn't uncovered.
And you know what I think, it's a lot like learning jiu-jitsu. You start off without the skills required to be the best at it, and if you put in the time and effort and the passion, then you're going to become great at it. And you've really grown as an instructor in that class. I mean, it's completely different than it was just a few years ago.
Yeah.
And it was good a few years ago. We've always had a tough group of kids that compete and win, and we're pretty well mannered. But one thing that, that I feel like I've noticed is the response from the parents and the attitude of the kids themselves.
Yeah.
The response from the parents is, it used to be, oh, he's having a good time, this is pretty fun, and now it's like, I can't believe he's doing this. I've never seen my kid put this much effort into school.
Yeah.
And I've never seen my kid have this kind of positive attitude and manners at home. And I think it's almost we have an unfair advantage because, we're giving them something that is hard to get anywhere else.
Yeah.
That has become a martial artist. You can earn belts. You can wear this uniform. You can stand tall and proud with a team. And even if it is a little, I try to tell parents in the beginning, a kid is not motivated by the values of what they're going to be when they're 25, 30 years old. They're a little more like, no, I want the recognition. That's normal behavior for a 9-year-old.
Yeah.
But you're connecting this positive feedback that they get with the good habits that they're doing. And then later they make the connection like, oh, this actually leads to a better life.
Yeah.
The better relationships with the people that I love and care about.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, and it has an impact on them right away. And here's the coolest thing, like you said, it's like that part of you do something, you get rewarded. And it is used in a way like that, but if you really think about it, all this stuff are things that kids already do at home.
Yep.
Right? Or things that the kids are not doing that's just going to help them out just a little bit more. And the other part is that it goes to the point where like, hey, what happened to your stripes? What happened to your requirements? To the point where like, man, I didn't, you can see the stress on their face. Like, I need to get this done. Now it's like, I'm always on top of them, but they understand the responsibility. So it's not I have to do this. Like, I need to get done because those are my standards. I'm a leadership member. I have to do this. Or even when they don't turn in stuff, you'll hear the other one, like the other teammates, like, "Oh, you didn't turn in this." So it's it's like the norm,
factor,
exactly, like the accountability.
It's so like, but you have to. You're one of us. Get your homework done.
Yeah. So, and this is and they're kids. That's one thing. You have to always remember that even from 13 and below, as old as 13 years old, they're kids.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So the idea of like sometimes, let's say some of my highest ranked competitors, they're not in the best behavior because they're overexcited, or maybe we're doing a game or something. All I have to do is look at them. Just look at them. Like, I get to the point where everyone, like, we finish a game, we're sparring, everyone's getting up, starts talking, it starts getting loud, and I just stand there like this. And they're like, hey, shh, shh. Right. So that's the accountability. Why does it come? It's not because I'm an instructor and I make them do it. It's because I have earned their trust and their friendship. And they say, you know what? It's not that I want to let coach down. It's just like, this is how we are. I want to be the
person that I've been being this whole time.
Exactly. Yeah. Sometimes we think like they only want to reflect our jiu-jitsu. But no, they reflect how we act and how we carry ourselves, Yeah. So, it's been a huge process. Right. I remember when I started running the kids classes for you, we didn't have a lot of this stuff, We
didn't have a lot of kids either.
We didn't have a lot of kids
and less structure, and it was still fine. It was beneficial.
And I had long hair. No, that was way before that.
Yeah. Coach Todd really liked that.
Yeah.
Long hair.
And then with that said, let me not take all the credit, because we have great coaches here, like
Absolutely.
Professor Todd, who doesn't do it right now, but he worked with the kids fundamental program for a long time. Coach Anthony, who's actually he started training here as Little Champions. or just 5-year-old kid.
We didn't have that little
We
champions
didn't have little
then,
champions,
but he was
right?
5. Now he's 16.
Yeah. So he's basically a product of what we're trying to do with kids. And if you guys see Coach Anthony, he's a well-mannered person, you know, just like if he was a grown adult, but he's only still a teenager.
He's a 44-year-old successful person trapped in a 16-year-old body.
Yeah. And it's
He's so mature.
yeah. And so it's like that's like what we're trying to do, right? So yeah, Coach Anthony is now helping develop some of our kids. We also had Coach Cameron with the Little Champions. He taught classes before, and other coaches that have helped, and a lot of assistant instructors.
Well, it all I mean, it's all a team effort.
Exactly.
You know? I mean, I'm talking with you now. We're talking about your role, but of course, we all rely on one another.
And I do want to
happen,
thank
you know?
all those guys for
of
making
course.
my job easier for sure.
Yeah.
You know, and like I said, it's team effort, and the reason why the success of the program, or me as an instructor, comes from having great mentors and being still constantly being fed information and resources to improve our program.
Yeah.
We're never satisfied. That's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
Never
Yeah,
satisfied with
learning.
what I have.
Well, and I think one thing too is like, you know, life is stressful and competitive. No matter what, a lot of people frown upon those two ideas. They want to avoid stress and they want to eliminate competition, and there's no way to do that.
No.
When you get older, you're going to be encountered with stress. There's going to be unexpected illnesses, changes in career, just people that you thought were you know, trustworthy, or they just turn out to be different. And if you're unprepared emotionally to handle those, you're unprepared to lead a happy, resilient life.
Yeah.
And I think the goal of our kids class is to provide these elements of competition and stress age appropriate so that they can grow into it and accept it. This is a normal experience. And then when they get a little older and they go through their teenage years and there's all this stress, they're more well equipped to take that on, and that leads into college years and the rest of their lives. And,
absolutely. And even whatever they decide to do in life, you know, they're going to be more prepared. And one of the biggest things, like I always tell them, is like, what is your legacy going to leave, you know, when you're not here no more? What are people going to remember about you? And so it's huge. And I tell them, like, at least for my scenario, it's like, what are you guys going to remember about me? You guys are not going to remember all those super fights. You guys are not going to remember any tournament that I win or any cool move that I do. You're going to remember what I taught you. When you're grown, you're a dad or a grandpa, you're going to be telling stories about your jiu-jitsu coach.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, because I would be saying stories about my own mentors as well.
Right.
You know? So that's the true legacy. And I always try to instill in them, as well as me, is try to carry that lifestyle and lead by example. It's always, we use that phrase a lot, but it has a big statement behind it if you truly follow it.
Absolutely. Well, you're doing an awesome job, man. This was really fun. I'm sure we'll do it again soon. And thank you. Hope you guys enjoyed. Be sure to tune in for the next one. See y'all later. Hey, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed that, please be sure to like and subscribe to this channel. Also, don't forget to share this video with somebody else. Thank you.